The folk understanding of happiness is something like the gratification of a toddler's whim. The toddler's having a tantrum in a store, and his mother, defeated, gives him the chocolate bar. And so now the child stops squawking and bitching and being subsumed by negative emotion and maybe smiles. And so you think, well, that's happiness. Okay, but that's not the kind of happiness that you're describing.
That's gratification. That's gratification, and that's a feeling. Enjoyment is not the same thing as pleasure. Pleasure is a limbic phenomenon. It's largely a stimulation of the ventral tegmental area and the ventral striatum of the brain. And you tap it in all sorts of, you can get pleasure from all sorts of things. If your girlfriend says, I love you, or you have a big bump of cocaine, whatever it happens to be, you'll get the same because we have a thrifty brain. But that's not enjoyment. Enjoyment is something that is permanent and can be experienced in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. It adds people in memory, thus making it a permanent experience.
The problem with immediate gratification is that it lacks the dimension of sustainability.
Once it's in your prefrontal cortex, you can manage your pleasures so your pleasures don't manage you. One of the things I'll tell my students is that something that gives you a lot of pleasure, and it can be addictive, and you're doing it alone, you're probably doing it wrong, because you're not going to be able to take it from pleasure to enjoyment, and it won't be a source of happiness.
Let's think about the difference between pornography and sex with a partner. Now, the thing about sex with a partner is that, especially if you want it to be repeated, you need to take the other person into account. It's much more complicated activity.
It's a higher level of consciousness. You're more conscious of the experience.
And pornography would only be that.
It strips it of everything except for those biological impulses.
Right. So it reduces it to the lowest possible common denominator. Now you introduce a partner. There's novelty in the partner. It complexifies it in the positive way because it brings elements of love and relationship and mutual caring. That's sanctification in a sense, or sacralization. Really is. A wise man would substitute enjoyment for pleasure.
And the reason is because enjoyment is permanent and pleasure is temporal, automatic, and animal. Dog can feel pleasure the same way that I can. My dog can't feel enjoyment in terms of the love relationships that I have with my wife that I can, because my dog's brain is incapable of.
When animal behaviors started to study play, they watched rats wrestle. They noticed that if the one juvenile was 10% bigger than the other, he could reliably win in a single bout.
Pretty much every time.
And then the conclusion from that was that play was a form of dominance behavior. But then Panksepp did this. He thought, yeah, but rats live in a social environment, so they don't play once. They play repeatedly. It's like, well, do the rules for iterable play, are they the same as the rules for one bout play? And the answer was no, because what Panksepp showed was that if you paired rats together repeatedly, the big rats that didn't let the little rats win 30% of the time didn't get invited to play. Pleasure is a one-off, and you could even exploit for pleasure. But if you want instead an arrangement that's iterable, and if better, maybe one that iterates and improves, that would be something like the sanctification of sexuality within a relationship.
Exactly right. Well, who is it who can't learn this? And the answer is dark triads. Why? Because narcissism, it's all about me. Psychopathy, I feel no remorse. Sadism, I enjoy it. I'm not going to learn. And so the result is that dark triads, they tend to exhibit compulsive, addictive behavior over and over again because they actually can't make it from pleasure to enjoyment.
Yeah.
They're incapable of actual enjoyment. That requires memory. Memory is such that you can actually, enjoyment requires that it be a permanent experience. Every year, my mother would make this golden brown, beautiful turkey, and my dad would go and get the Instamatic camera, and he would take a picture of the turkey in the oven just to commemorate that moment, that beautiful moment. Now, what was he trying to do? He was trying to memorialize something that was going to be highly pleasurable to eat, such that we could enjoy that moment again and again and again.